Guys, firstly, I just want to also say thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. I really, really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. The pleasure is all ours.
So I think this is just an open question to the entire floor, actually, just quickly, because we're tackling a character like Hellboy, who is incredibly, incredibly popular across many different mediums, in video games, in comic books, and graphic novels, and then also film. So when you are tackling a character that is as popular as Hellboy, what's the first thing that goes through your mind?
The thing that goes through my mind is
Just pissing
what's
yourself in terror, or no? Yeah.
what's the catch? First thing that goes through my mind is wow, what an opportunity. I know that sounds vague and kind of like, but it really is. For me, it was just exciting and a lot of gratitude, and I can't believe it, and how are we going to do this? And super exciting, one-off chance, right? It's nothing that you do on a regular basis, so it's definitely excitement.
I appreciate your answer there. And I just have to say, I think it's incredible because you've taken on a mantle. I think Hellboy is slowly becoming one of those roles where it's incredibly prestigious. You've got Ron Pearlman, David Harbour. Those are big Hollywood heavyweights that have portrayed that role before you. And now that you get to, put your own spin on it, how did you approach the character differently where you felt like, cool, I've seen how these other actors have done it. How am I going to do this differently?
Good question. Well, there's subtle differences, right? We have a period piece. We're working with a different director. We're pulling directly from the comic book, and we're all going to add our little, nuances and innuendos and personalities. But as far as approaching it, like I've mentioned, it's a no pressure deal for me. I kind of take it as it comes. And thankfully, I had a lot of relatable. I just found him relatable in many ways. In the way it was written, personality wise, and the way he carries himself. I looked at it and I was like, wow, I'm so grateful I have this opportunity. And as modestly as possible, I can't wait to I can't wait to really have a crack at it, and I think I could put a good dent in it. But as far as an approach, it's working with the script, it's working with the director, with the prosthetics team. It's a team effort. It's not really the Jack Kesy show, right? It's really a team effort here. I'd like to take all the credit, good and bad, but it's really a team effort.
I will say that, when you meet Jack and talk to him for any amount of time, it's hard to come away with it and not feel like there's a lot of Hellboy in this guy. And, you just kind of add the tail and he's good to go, And so, I mean, my feeling about it in terms of performance, and I think I try to make it as clear to Jack as possible, is just be yourself. We want you. We don't want you to play a larger than life character. We don't want you to play a cartoon. We don't want you to play anything other than a human being, and approach these scenes, approach this character and approach these scenes the way you'd approach any other role. If you can, forget about, the 25 pounds of rubber that you're carrying around with you, and just view it as any other role, because we look at Hellboy, even though he doesn't look like a normal human being, he's as human as any of us. And that's really what we wanted him to feel like.
Right. And I just want to add, Caleb, I don't want to, I kind of come off as blasé or like nonchalant, but there was a lot of great moments in this script where I could lean into it as a human being, and it's like, yeah, I have all of this, etc. on, but really, the conversations and the exchanges between Billy Joe and even my mother, it's no different from any other human being having a kind of a emotional catharsis of some kind of. So it was a pleasure to act, so I like those moments as opposed to all the action, man. That's just punching and kicking. That's kind of the easy stuff, right? But to really lean into the human aspect of him is always the fun part. Anyway, that's it.
So we actually mentioned 25 pounds of rubber earlier. And
Mhm.
both Hellboy and the Crooked Man was entirely prosthetic, if I'm not mistaken. That's the case.
No CGI detected.
Which is incredible. Like, we live in a world where CGI is like pretty much the go-to. And
I
way
actually right now am generated by AI.
Mhm.
You guys just told me what were some of the benefits of going purely prosthetic versus what were the limitations?
Well, for me personally, aesthetically, it just looks so much richer and better. I think a lot of the CGI looks like shit, right? I mean, it depends on the person who executes it. There are people who do it better than others, but anytime you get to feel it, sense it, just really be a little closer to it, I think it makes a better experience for the audience
Yeah.
member. I mean, I remember as a kid watching the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and those costumes that were prosthetic. They looked awesome as opposed to some of the CGI. It just looked like shit, to be honest with you, you know. So the cons, it's uncomfortable. It's testing you, right? You have to do the work, right? Obviously, you're not just letting some computer do the work for you. So you're gonna be slightly uncomfortable. Maybe an understatement, you know, but it's worth it in the end, I hope.
So, Martin, actually, can I just ask you a quick question? What was your reaction when you saw Hellboy in the flesh, or rather in the rubber, for the first time?
In the rubber.
In the rubber. In the rubber. I think probably the first time was up on that back lot with the church, and it was a night shoot, and there was like a load of smoke blowing, everything like this, super dark, witches, the rest of it, and yeah, it's just thrilled. It was just pumped because it's like this just makes sense, you know. We're in this like dark, spooky ass field with like gravestones poking out, and there's some old church that they built, and then there's just Hellboy spinning around with his big gun. And I think that kind of talks to your previous question about like the lack of CGI, because as an actor, I think like it's a joy. You don't have to imagine. It's not like there's a massive green screen and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna just project onto that. You know, oh yeah, like in the edit, we'll just make it look good. This way, you're on location, you're shooting it, and you're all there, and you can kind of like look in the other person's eyes and see what the camera sees, which is rare these days. And I think that's just a great privilege to be part of, because I think it's rarer and rarer that movies are shot like this now. And I think that comes across when you watch them. You know, for me, like CGI, yeah, it's cool, all the tricks that computers do, but I think as a viewer, I'm just not that. I just know that it's not real, so you know, it's not that like alluring to me. Whereas watching two actors in a real location go for it, then it's great.
There was definitely a proper tangibility in this film where you could tell that what was present was real. And that was something, as a viewer, as we mentioned, like, you get joy out of that. You know that what you're seeing is real, and you can see the hardships and the passion that goes into making a project like this, where you can see everything that is visible is the hard work of people trying to create something that's very, very real. I want to ask another question that's open to the entire floor. So I'm hoping for 3 completely different answers, because you guys obviously had very different experiences on set. But what was your favorite moment that took place on set while you're busy filming Hellboy?
Go Martin first.
I probably think the final showdown and then being destroyed. It's a great feeling having Hellboy over you standing over you with a massive gun. You know, you've got to pinch yourself and be like, well, there's not many people can experience this, and you know, there's not many times I'm gonna have this feeling in my life where I'm dressed like some crazy evil villain, you know, in this spooky set. Hellboy is standing over me, killing me. It's one of those like, well, this is weird and great at the same time. So yeah, I don't think I'll forget that too quickly.
I don't want to steal Brian's thunder, but he said it quite eloquently. But when we say it's a wrap, it's a wrap. I think it was very exciting. Not to be taken any other way, but to actually have this thing in the can, because it really was like filmmaking Navy SEAL boot camp, man, from day to day. Like it's just not an everyday film you shoot, right? With Hellboy prosthetic and the limitations, which can be not limitations always, but they push you, they put you in a corner, and you got to really be creative sometimes. So bring out the best of you sometimes, but when we actually had it in the can, knowing we shot it, we finished it, we got through it. It was a great feeling. It was like, we did this. We actually finished this film and we got it done. It was really exciting.
So yeah, a moment that stands out to me, that comes to mind is there's a scene in the film where one of the witches crawls back into her own skin, and I wanted to shoot that myself with my hands, so that to make sure that we got the sufficiently disgusting material that I knew we needed. So there was a moment sitting in there holding the camera with a naked, writhing, swarming, lube covered, shrieking, sort of like creature of flesh, anatomically accurate and terrifying. And just being that close to it in the moment was one of those, man, I love this job.
I'm going to rewind this conversation a little bit back to when we were talking about the graphic novels. So this is obviously, in my opinion, by far the most faithful Hellboy adaptation. Before working on this project, were any of you guys Hellboy fans who did read the graphic novels?
Big Hellboy fan, and the big appeal of working on this one to me was, we're not trying to do a reboot. This is not another installment in the Hellboy franchise. That's not what this is. This is an opportunity to directly adapt a piece of literature. So we approach the Crooked Man books, which are Mike Mignola's favorite Hellboy story. We approach it as if we were adapting a story by Stephen King or Clive Barker. As this is a classic piece of horror literature, and we want to bring it to life, and we want to do it with as much authenticity as we can. And it always gave us a lot of inspiration to know that we were trying to make Mike Mignola happy. We wanted him to see his favorite story and his favorite scenes come to life on screen. We wanted him to see his version of the character come to life on screen in a way he never had before. And if Mike was happy, then we knew we'd done our job. So it's really gratifying to us when Mike Mignola sees the movie now and is telling people like, yeah, this is it. This is my Hellboy. And he loves it. And that makes us feel great. It makes us feel like we did our job. And so I think for all of us, it's, we put the movie out in the world and anxious to see what people think. We hope people like it. But in our hearts, we know we already did our job. And we feel good about it.
Which would be the next graphic novel you'd like to adapt if you are given the opportunity to do a sequel?
I'm not sure about, I haven't thought about what particular story we would do from the canon, but I think if we were going to take this character again, one of the most appealing things to me is that it's a period piece. I love that this is late 50s. And I mean, the most interesting thing to do next to me with this version of the character would be to take him into the 60s, and I want to see this guy in bell bottoms dropping acid. And, hanging out with Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd. I just think that's the most fun take to do next. I love the idea of Hellboy growing up with history as a backdrop.
If you guys were able to make a dream sequel, okay, and we kind of answered this a little bit quickly with Brian, but what would you guys like to see in a Hellboy sequel?
I like what Brian said, and me, Brian and I actually spoke about this, our fantasy version of seeing Hellboy in the 60s. I don't know. I'm not an expert. Like I said, I'm a guest in the comic book world. I'm not a comic book reader, but I did get into Hellboy through films, right? Through Guillermo's versions, and then obviously being a part of it. But I like to see a more, I like to continue a more grounded version of Hellboy and keep pushing it further and further into the rated R world and into the human world and into a more of a reluctant hero, watching him disappear from that world and trying to blend in with like the Jimi Hendrix and the I don't know, maybe the druggies and the hippies, and really trying to find himself. I mean, to me, there's so much that can be done there. I think it would be amazing.
I think I've said it before, like there's not many movies that are made in this kind of genre or coming from comic books that are, brave enough or courageous enough to not just go crazy with CGI. The team have made is something really singular, and I really don't think there's much of this out there at all. And that, if they, a dream sequel would just be like more more like, yeah, what happens in the 60s? What happens in the 70s? What happens if it's
Mm.
like holding back on making it, you know, throwing CGI and throwing loads of tech and green screens at this thing and keeping these stories, you know, that come from comics, but keeping them, you know, in small teams of actors and directors and using locations. I think that's just super exciting. I'd love to see that.
Well, guys, honestly, I just want to thank you so much for your time. And look, if it means anything to you, I was discussing this film at work today, and because a lot of the guys have obviously, you know, watched the trailer. And I mean, I work in a media house, so everyone has their own, you know, 50 cents that they're busy throwing at, and they're talking about the film and whether they're looking forward to it or not. A majority of them are massive Hellboy fans as well. And I remember even just watching the very first scene with the train coming at the tracks, and then the train hits and the camera, you know, drags along with it. And just the opening sequence, I remember just sending a message on the work group chat. I was like, guys, no, like this Hellboy movie, this is it. Like this is the adaptation we've been waiting for. So guys, I just want you to know that there's like 14 other men out there that are already waiting at the bit to watch this film. But guys, thank you so much for the opportunity to just speak to you for these few minutes and to just, you know, get a inside look at your creative process. I really, really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Caleb.
Fun movie to talk about.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.